Okay, so today we're going to be talking about audio capturing and what that means. So I have a little disclaimer for you before we get started. So if you could just quickly read that. I'm just kidding. I'm a music therapist, not a professional sound engineer. And so there are many other tutorial videos out there that are more geared for professional sound engineering, but this is more geared towards music therapists. And why I started down this road of learning audio, learning capturing is that I would be working with patients and clients, and I had all these different terms and technologies, and my recordings would sound funny, and they had different sounds, and I couldn't figure out why. And so I really went down this road of really studying audio, studying sound capturing, and how to best work with our patients and clients. Okay, so we're going to be talking about capturing audio. So you have sound. Sound has to be captured by something, typically a microphone. And then that microphone either goes into a wireless system or a cable. And traditionally, you think about it going into a mixer, being amplified and out to a speaker. So that would show live performance, right? That would show a live, like at a concert or here at the podium. So what we're going to be talking about is at that cable can go into a digital interface, and then that would go into your computer, and that would come to data. And that's what we're really going to be focusing on today, is how sound goes into a microphone, into a USB interface, then into your computer, and then how to turn physical sound into data. And once it's data, you can do whatever you want with it. All right, so let's take a quick primer on what is sound. Sound is longitudinal. It's a mechanical wave. It actually has physical movement. It travels through any medium, but it cannot travel through a vacuum. There is no sound in outer space. So when you see those movies and they're talking in outer space, you know it's fake. Sound is variations in pressure, meaning a region is increased pressure. Sound wave is called compression or condensation. So think about a speaker. As it vibrates, that's actually what's happening with sound waves. All right, and so those sound pressure variations enter your physical sound waves, go into your ear, and that's how we have an electrical stimulus. Oops, sorry, let me back that up. So the physical representation of sound goes hits your eardrum, and then electrical signal is sent to your brain. That is what's happening. That's how we are hearing, and that's how you're hearing my voice right now. So that's exactly what a microphone does. It changes physical energy into an electrical signal that travels through the cable and or through wires. It's a transducer. Think of it as your ear. It's exactly what's happening. All right, so capturing audio is capturing physical energy. Just think about that. So we're capturing physical energy. So this is how it was done in the olden days, right? There was mechanical, you physically sang into that tube and it was pushing on wax like a little wax cylinder, and the sound waves were moving the wax and or vinyl. And that's what a record looks under an electron microscope. The sound waves are actually a physical representation of what was happening. And then when you would play the record, that physical representation would be amplified back out. And that's what was happening at the original recordings. Nowadays, we have all types of microphones, right? We have liquid microphones, ribbon microphones, contact microphones, carbon, laser, crystal, electric, dynamic, and condenser. Out of all these microphones, we have the electric is the most used microphone because it is actually used in all our smartphones. All our electrical devices use an electric microphone, which is basically a condenser microphone. All right, so let's look at what a dynamic microphone is. A dynamic microphone has a little diaphragm inside there, and the diaphragm is connected to some coils. And sound waves move that diaphragm, and it moves that coils. Do you see like the little magnet? It looks like a little U. So it's a magnet with coils wrapped around, and that's how when we talk into a microphone, the sound waves move the diaphragm, which move the coils within a magnetic field, and that's how we are creating electrical signal. Is actually moving physical movement of our sound waves are moving those coils. Does that make sense? Okay. And then that electric signal moves through the cable or through the air, through a wireless into a mixer, amp, etc. I like to think of the microphone as the opposite of a speaker. So you would be talking into the microphone. It's actually moving a little diaphragm back and forth like a speaker moves when it's playing, and it's moving those wires back and forth through a magnetic field. And that's how a dynamic microphone works. It's very low energy. A condenser microphone is a little bit different, that it has, let me pop it up, an electrically charged diaphragm. So the dynamic isn't electrically charged. It doesn't need any electricity. We are creating electricity with our sound waves. A condenser microphone is electrically charged. It has an electrically charged backplate and a diaphragm, and the sound waves move the diaphragm, and it changes the capacitance of the electricity. So the variations of currents get boosted to the cable mixer, and it needs phantom power. That's why when you're using a condenser microphone, you actually turn it on when you turn that phantom power on. You're actually charging it, giving a little bit of electricity so that it can work. Without phantom power, you will not hear anything out of a condenser microphone. Does that make sense? All right, so here's what they look like inside. Traditionally, condenser microphones are those bigger ones that you might see like in studios, or the small, skinny ones that you'll see like recording instruments. Oops, sorry. And the dynamic microphone are the traditional ones that you see with the metal frame or the metal windscreen that you see on stage. Like almost all stages have a dynamic microphone, and you'll see why. All right, so the difference between dynamic and condenser. Dynamic microphones are less sensitive, where condenser microphones are more sensitive. It picks up all the different little nuances. Dynamic needs no phantom power. Condenser needs phantom power. Dynamic are more rugged. You could drop it. Most of the times won't even hurt it. You've seen those old microphones have dents and they're beat up all over the place. Those are dynamic microphones. Where condensers are more fragile. You have to really be careful with them. Dynamic has a low output, where condenser has a high output. The dynamic has less frequency detail, where condenser has more frequency detail. You pick up more nuances. It sounds richer. That's why they're used in studios more frequently, because you can hear all the nuances and all the frequencies. All right, so we're going to talk quickly about polar patterns. You have omnidirectional, cardioid, supercardioid, bidirectional, and shotgun. And here's what they look like. When you go to buy the microphone, you see these little pictures on there, and you're like, what is this thing talking about? This is an omni, so it picks up in all directions. This is a cardioid, where it picks up just in front of the microphone. Supercardioid picks up in the front and then a little bit in the back. This is a shotgun microphone that used mostly for video. And this is a bidirectional that might be used for podcasting or maybe recording a duet, two people on one mic one. So what we typically see is omni, cardioid, and sometimes supercardioid. All right, so let's talk about the omnidirection polar pattern. So it records the whole room, right? You can't point, isolate, or direct. You stick it in the middle of the room, it's recording everything in all directions. And it's hard to manage variations in volumes. So if someone's super loud, you'll hear that super loud person or instrument over everything else.
Microphone has the same output regardless of its orientation to the sound source. Its polar pattern is a sphere. On paper, it looks like a nearly smooth circle. In this demonstration, notice how the sound level remains virtually constant, even as the angle between the microphone and the sound source changes.
All right, so a unidirectional polar pattern, it's either a cardioid, supercardioid, or shotgun, right? You think about uni, I always think about the unicycle, one wheel. It has one direction. So we typically would use either a cardioid or supercardioid, most likely a cardioid. All right, so cardioid and supercardioid patterns are unidirectional, meaning you can point towards or isolate different sounds that you want. So yeah, it's directional, it's focused, will not pick up a whole room well. So if you're trying to record a whole room, do not use a unidirectional cardioid or supercardioid pattern. And you generally have to have close proximity. So you have to be pretty close to the microphone for it to pick up.
The most common unidirectional pattern is the cardioid, which is so named because it resembles a heart. A cardioid microphone is most sensitive to sound sources in front of the mic and least sensitive to sound sources that are directly behind the mic. A cardioid mic has a useful pickup angle of approximately 130 degrees, which can accommodate two talkers or singers, or one user who may not always be directly in front of the mic. In this demonstration, notice how the sound level gradually drops as the angle between the microphone and the sound source changes. A supercardioid microphone has a narrower pickup angle than the cardioid, but unlike the cardioid, it is slightly sensitive to sound sources that are directly behind the mic. A supercardioid mic provides better isolation from room noise and nearby instruments, and can be more resistant to feedback than a cardioid, but it requires the user to maintain a more consistent position directly in front of the mic. In this demonstration, notice how the sound level drops more rapidly as the angle between the microphone and the sound source changes.